Hello and welcome back to me out scouting for potential autumn photographic opportunities. If you tuned in last Sunday, you will have seen me at a beautiful pond location where I walked around and uncovered potential abstract and sort of stereotypical photographs of what I would hope to capture in the coming weeks as autumn unfolds. Now that location is one that's a little bit far away from me, and I'm probably only going to be there 1 or 2 times during optimum autumn. However, the location that I'm at today is somewhere very close to home that I'm hoping will become my second home over the autumn months. I've been here many times before on this channel. It's where I photographed one of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen. It's also where the snoring incident happened. If you're not new to my channel, I'm sure you'll remember that story from last summer. And I just started hearing snoring, like really loud snoring. But this location is one that I've never come to in the autumn, and I cannot understand why, because it is perfect for autumn photography. And I've been here quite a lot the last few days, scouting out potential photographic opportunities for the season. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you some of the trees that I have picked out to shoot this season and why I've chosen them, and I'm going to speak you through it to hopefully help you uncover what could potentially make a good autumnal photographs and why I've chosen these trees in particular. Now there's a number of lone trees in this location, and I've picked about 4 or 5 that I think might work pretty well as the autumn progresses. This one is a little bit unsure for me. The shape of it I absolutely love. It's very unique and it stands nice and tall in amongst this lovely field here. But as you can see, the trees behind it aren't that far away, so trying to get separation of this tree to really make it stand out will be the issue in the autumn months. But because I absolutely love the shape of this tree, I have noted it down as a potential photographic opportunity, because as you can sort of see, the leaves on this tree are already starting to turn, even though we're only in the sort of middle of September, and this is probably going to be one of the first trees that's going to turn in this location. So I'm not sure how this is going to go, because I think this shot would be great if all the trees behind it change as well, but that might not happen until later in the season. But because of the shape of this tree, as I say, I love it. I've picked this out as a potential image. But because of that lack of separation, I'm only really going to be able to get a good shot of this tree if it's a misty morning and there's some diffused light in the air to give me that separation between this tree and the trees behind it. And the next tree I'm going to show you is another lone tree, bigger than this, but that is literally standing alone with no trees intersecting behind it. Now this lone tree behind me here is one that I've been eyeing up for years, and I'm sure you can see why. It is this beautiful tree in the middle of this lovely field here, and it stands out much more than the tree that we've just spoken about, because the trees behind it are further away and they're also not as tall, or at least when your vantage points, like down here, you can get low underneath the tree to allow the tree to be elevated above the trees in the distance to give you that lovely lone tree feel, as you can see here. And this tree is also gorgeous because it's got beautiful trunk with these lovely nodules and that within it, and you can just imagine as this starts to change colour how prominent it will be within this field. And it's just, like I say, a tree that I've been eyeing up for years, and this is actually the photograph that I'm most determined to get this autumn, because this tree to me I just think is beautiful, and in the right light conditions with a little bit of golden light, a little bit of contrast, that beautiful golden saturation, maybe a little bit of mist if we're lucky, or just the sunrise or sunset sky behind this tree, it could just create some amazing images. So I just wanted to showcase the different types of lone trees that you can potentially shoot, but also just to make sure that the tree A has character, but B, like this one, it can be photographed in a way that isolates it from the trees or the buildings or whatever may be in the background of it, which you can do with this tree, but you can't do with the last one unless you've got misty conditions, which of course can be quite difficult sometimes to happen or to plan. So yeah, this one's probably going to be easier to shoot, and it's also one that I'm very excited about capturing. As well as lone trees, something else that I'm being very mindful are specific trees that are overhanging this lake itself. And although today you can't see it because it's quite windy today, so the water's moving quite a lot, this location is very good for reflections, and that was very much shown in that video I filmed a few years ago when I got that epic sunset. The reflections on this lake that night were exquisite, they were just incredible. So you can just imagine in the autumn months how the beautiful colours of the trees reflecting on the loch on those still days will potentially make for some beautiful images. So I'm looking for specific trees, as I was saying, that are overhanging the side of this lake that could potentially give me some really nice reflections, so that I know exactly what spots around the lake to come to when the conditions are still and calm, to be able to utilise the best trees that are allowing that. And at this spot I'm at just now, there's this tree overhanging just slightly onto the lake here, and it would make for a really nice shot. Unfortunately, there used to be a really photogenic boathouse here, but yeah, last year it was taken down unfortunately, so that's now gone, which is a really good photographic opportunity. But even without that, it's about looking for these trees that could potentially produce some interest when they change colour. And as you can see here, there's a lot of ducks and swans about, so if you can get some of them coming into the image along with these beautiful reflections and the colours of the autumn leaves, it'll just be beautiful. So yeah, that's one thing I'm doing when I'm walking around here, is just picking out the trees that could potentially reflect on the lake when the time comes, and grabbing them in my memory so that I know what spots to come back to when the leaves have changed. So as well as looking for trees that are overhanging the water's edge, I'm also looking for the very prominent trees that line the lake's edge as well, because these ones are the ones that are going to really stand out and have a lot of character when they begin to change colour. And in my last video I showcased this with a photograph of a potential image of a boathouse, and that boathouse was lined with the beautiful trees that will hopefully be changing colour soon. And this lake in particular, although that boathouse is now gone, it has got a number of small jetties that are used by the fishermen, and they're small enough to not intrude the images, but big enough to add character and interest to the shots. And behind me here I've got a lovely line of trees that are coupled together, which also incorporate a little bit of the islands within this lake as well. And by photographing those trees with one of these jetties in it, it adds character to the image and gives just something a little bit different to photograph. And as you can see, because these trees are quite prominent, these images could potentially look really striking when the leaves have changed. Now, I'm not just looking for the big standalone trees that have character and drama, but I'm also looking for the more intricate trees that line this lake's edge. And silver birch trees are a fantastic example of this. And behind me we've got a cluster of silver birch trees just on the outskirts of the lake by the path. And while I've come just now to the opposite side of the lake, as you can see, and this gives me a fantastic vantage point over the lake, which allows me to get a photograph of these trees lined up when the colours have changed, with potentially some early morning light cast on them. Now, one app I've been using a lot recently is PhotoPills, and if any of you don't have this app, it's a great investment. It's very cheap, but what this app does is it allows you to work out what direction the sun rises or sets at your specific location. So I can see by using this app that the sun rises in that direction there, which means if I'm here for sunrise and you get a nice golden light, once it's risen above the trees, I could potentially get some lovely light hitting those trees there. And obviously when they're coupled with the autumn colours, it will really allow them to pop and stand out. So this is always something to consider, you know, as well as looking for your sort of bigger trees that have a lot of character within them. Also look at the more intricate trees and try and find a cluster of them that tells a story. And the story of this tree here is that you've got a few silver birch each side, and you've got this kind of very characterful, prominent one in the middle that's a little bit different, that you can centre in the image with the other trees around it, that I think would just look really nice in the autumn months. So yeah, just something else to be mindful of when you're looking for potential trees to shoot. Don't just look for one or two, look for the bigger picture and how you can cluster a number of trees together to produce a potential shot as well. And I think this is a great example of that. So now that I've walked around the water's edge, I've decided to come into the woodland itself and uncover some of the photo opportunities that are available here. And I had never been on this path until 2 days ago. And I can't believe it, because the amount of amazing trees and photographic opportunities on this path that I found was just unbelievable. And I think this is a good tip here actually. You know, if you have woodland near your home or areas like that lake that I walk around a lot, but there's other paths off of it, make sure you go and explore it, especially at this time of year, because you've no idea what you're going to uncover. And if you watched my 10 autumn photography tips video last week, you will have seen this tree here. I stood up beside this tree to film some of that, and this tree to me is amazing. It's this beautiful tree with this huge trunk and these lovely branches that overhang both the path and the fence on the other side. And as it's situated on the outskirts of this woodland, I know for a fact that at sunset, if we get a really good golden sunset, we'll get some gorgeous golden light hitting the side of this tree and causing lovely shadows and contrast and light to come into the woodland, which could make for an amazing image. And because it's right beside the path as well, you've got this lovely leading line leading through the woodland and leading the viewer's eye through potential image opportunities. So I'm really excited to see if I can capture this tree when it is lovely and golden, because there's a number of elements both within its position and within its character that could make for great opportunities when the leaves turn. Before I sign off today's video, I just have a few more tips that I want to share with you when you're looking for potential trees to photograph this season. And the first one is perspective. So when you look at a lot of the images I've showcased to you today, a lot of them I was kind of taking from my angle, so like where I was. So I wasn't zooming in particularly far, especially when you look at the lone tree potential images that I was showcasing to you, and the ones of the trees reflecting on the lake's edge, and that last image that I was considering with that lovely tree and the light coming in the woodland there. But when you think of perspective and you think about what angle but also what focal length you're going to use to photograph trees, this is where your photography in the autumn can completely come to life. So if you're walking around a location and you're struggling to find really obvious trees that speak to you, try using a telephoto lens to zoom into the scene. And you will have seen that with the silver birch trees that I showcased to you in this video. By zooming in 200mm, I was able to frame them within my image and get rid of all the distracting sky and the trees behind it, as well as the lake's edge itself, and just showcase those silver birch trees, which allowed me to produce a potential image that I wouldn't have been able to do without my telephoto lens. Another example I have of this is when I first arrived on this location today and I was looking for those lone trees to showcase to you, I noticed that along one of the edges of the bank there's a number of smaller lone trees that just go along the edge, a number of meters apart from each other. And when I walk past them close by, the trees don't look particularly interesting. There's a lot intersecting the back of them. You've got grass, you've got other trees. They didn't stand out. But see, when I was at the opposite side of the lake and I was zooming in with my lens, I was able to frame them completely on their own with the field behind them, allowing them to really stand out in the frame. And if I was to take an image similar to what you're seeing on the screen just now, in beautiful light conditions and in portrait orientation, just imagine how much that tree would stand out amongst the scene and how it is being coupled with the beautiful simplistic scene behind it. So if you are struggling to find images, make sure you try something like a telephoto lens to see what other opportunities become available to you if you've not got any epic and obvious trees around you. And lastly, every time you come to a location in the autumn, you're going to uncover new photographic opportunities. This season is forever changing, and there's a number of trees around me just now that don't look very interesting just now, but I can guarantee in a few weeks' time they will do. And equally in different weather conditions, if you come to a location in the mist, some of the trees are going to stand out much more than they are during the daytime like just now. So images that I wouldn't even think about shooting just now, I potentially could shoot in the misty conditions because those scenes will come to life. And the same goes for light. If you're shooting on a stormy day or a rainy day where you've got changeable light, when you've got rainbows or at golden hour, the light can transform your scene too. So if you're walking around during the daytime like I am today and you're really struggling to find potential trees, just take note of ones that you think might work well and just remember that they could look amazing given the right weather conditions. And if you use an app like PhotoPills to predict where the sun is, where it's going to rise, where it's going to set and whatnot, then that'll allow you to determine what trees might potentially look good at different times of the day. I hope you've learned something from this video. I am so excited now for autumn to properly begin. I've got some really exciting things planned both within this location and with trips away that I can't wait to share with you. But as always, I want to say a huge thank you for watching, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you all again next time.